Right, 5. And so we see with 1.5, there's a classic question about budgeting. And at the beginning of your business, you will come up with a sort of budgeted overhead absorption rate, right, based on your budgeted figures. And the examiner will give you or guide you as to what's driving the overhead, because this is to do with trying to include a portion of overhead into your product. So when we look at paint manufacturer, they tell us to about, it says here that your paint manufacturer is based on machine hours. So they tell us that this is based on machine hours. Our focus becomes machine hours, right? And then the question says that based on machine hours with paint manufacturer, what we are saying is that these hours of 2966 have the potential to drive a potential budgeted overhead of 185,375. So we must have sat down and looked in previous years and thought that for every hour, every machine hour, we observe, we observe for a total of 296 hours. We observed a total cost of 185,375. So you could argue, therefore, that the average cost is equal to 62.5. So your answer here is 62.5 pounds. It's driven by machine hours, as they tell us, as opposed to the fact that you have a lot of people in the room and they're the ones causing the overhead for canning. And so therefore we argue that the budgeted labor hours, 8864 labor hours, are causing this overhead of 223060, right? Which means that you could argue, therefore, that the average overhead. Let me just look at that. 8864, 223060. I'm getting an odd number, but let's just do it. 223060 divided by 8864. Yes, I'm going to have to round up. Oh, yes, it says round to 2 decimals. Perfect. So that's 25.16. So I'm getting 25.16 pounds per hour. And that's how we deal with that. So the first step is always to find the budgeted. You might have some over-absorption or under-absorption through the year, but you need to start with something. Okay, let's cut that out so I could write on it. So the question takes a little shift in gear. It sort of says, listen, you have created a budgeted overhead absorption rate of 28. You've said that for every hour we will put in 28 pounds into our accounts. That's what you've said, into our accounts. Yes, that's what you've said. Now, what does that mean? You're saying that we will put in 28 pounds into our accounts. Now, what you're saying here is that you actually, so what happens now is that every hour you work, you will put in 28 pounds into your accounts, and you've worked 7,400 hours. So if I was doing this from a double entry point of view, I'd write expense and I'd put 28 pounds for every hour, and I've done 7,400. So that's 28 times 7,400, which is 207,200, and I'll have some kind of accrual, right? 207,200. Or you could use this rationally. I'm saying that put 28 pounds for every hour that goes in, and then you have you have 7,400 hours that go in, and that now equals a total of 207,200. So this is what's sitting in your accounts under this expense. And then you get, the invoice comes through, and it says the actual overhead. We've now got the real overhead. It's actually 213,200. So the overhead so far absorbed is 207,200. That's what we've absorbed into our accounts. But the actual overheads incurred are 200,200. So you haven't put enough in. I need to write a journal, right, to put in an extra, 6,000. To put more in. So there's a difference of 6,000. So I haven't put enough in, so I've under-absorbed. I'm currently in a state of under-absorption, so I need to put some more in, right? And that's I've under-absorbed, right? And that's what's sort of happening here, right? Okay. Right, let's finish off this bit. Now, this question is slightly, it looks tricky, but it isn't that crazy. I think what we need to do is to go back to quarter one, and in quarter one, we will see that what really happened here was that, if you remember in quarter one, we said that canning and packing was based on direct labor hours. So we found a figure here. And that figure, if you remember, we found by dividing the budgeted overhead hours of 223060 by the 8864. So we said 2230. Sorry, let me just find that again. 223060 divided by the 8864. We did that. That gave us the figure 223060 divided by 8864. That gave us our 25.16, right? So 25.16, that's our running figure. Let me just clean this place up a little. 25.16, we have 25.16, 25.16, and then what happens? Remember, it's very similar to what we did in part B. This is important that you can do this, 25.16. And what you then say is you say, well, listen, well, how many actual direct labor hours did we do? You see, because this budgeted overheads figure, be careful, is based on your budgeted machine hours. Sorry, it's based on your some budgeted machine hours. So some budgeted labor hours, forgive me. So this figure here is based on budgeted direct labor hours, it's based on budgeted costs. But when it comes to the actual work, once we've now found that overhead absorption rate, we now start working with actuals. We sort of say, well, what were the actual direct labor hours? And then compare that to the actual overheads. So we now take that 25.16 and multiply that by 8,000. So we say, well, we now have, because that's, like I said, every time you do an hour, you actually did 8,000 hours, you put in 25.16. That was the whole purpose of calculating the budgeted overhead absorption rate. So you have 25.16 times 8,000, and you put that in, and you will get 201,317.68 or whatever, right? So so the question now is, well, what were the actual overheads? And when you look at that, you see that they were 215,404. Yes, 215,404. So that's what actually happened. That's actual. So that's what actually happened, and that's the, if you like, what we have absorbed, right? And that's what actually happened. We need to put some more in, right? It's a bit like what I did earlier on. So we needed that times the actual labor hours, because that's what actually happened. We got this, so we now have to find the difference. So the difference, of course, is 215,404 minus 201,317 gives you, sorry, let's do that again. 215,404 minus 201,317 gives you 14,087. I get 14,087, and it's underabsorbed. It's underabsorbed, right? It's underabsorbed because you haven't put in enough. So you need to put a journal through of this to bring it back up to this, so that it's recognized in the income statement as this whole amount, so that profits aren't overstated, right? Right. Okay, great. So again, remember that the whole point of all of this was, the whole point of having these figures here, of all these, was just to find these figures here, and then we move on to just focus on the actuals in terms of actual machine hours or actual direct labor hours. We don't need these budgeted machine hours again, and once we have found the overhead absorption rates. Okay.